Welcome back. This is part of my series called Planning a Trip to Colombia During Uncertain Times. In this video, we're going to focus on traveling to South America, Central America, primarily to Colombia, during the COVID pandemic. We're filming this at the very end of January, so things will change because they're changing all the time. We're looking at kind of relying on some of my experiences, what I've read, the current situation of what's going on, and what to expect in the future. We're going to go to the introduction and we'll see you on the other side. In the meantime, please subscribe to my channel. Love to have you back next time as well. Watch on. Welcome back. So let's get started. Before we even talk about the pandemic and all the requirements that you have for COVID, let's take a look at some of the requirements you have legally as a U.S. citizen going to Colombia or other places in South and Central America. The first thing you're going to need for Colombia is a passport. I'm going to take you and show you the travel site for the State Department. It is travel.state.gov. And they actually call it the Passports and How to Apply section. And it will take you through the details on how to get a passport. Before you even get started on all the other aspects, you need to get your passport. Enough said there, so let's move on to the pandemic. One of the great tools that I found in my travels was through my American Airlines reservation was an app called Sherpa. I think that's how you pronounce it, S-H-E-R-P-A. This is a site where you're able to learn about the latest with regards to travel restrictions and health restrictions by the destination you're going to. We're going to take a look at going from the United States to Colombia and then look at going from Colombia back to the United States. This is the page that we must look at on Sherpa that will tell us about going to Colombia. On the left-hand side it says entry restrictions are eased up. They're talking about it was updated in January 18th. The truth is they were eased up in September. That's when they went from being completely quarantined and locked down to allowing international travelers to fly in. They, at the time, had a restriction with regards to a COVID test. It was eased at the beginning of November, and then again it was put on at the beginning of January. In the middle, they talk about a mandatory pre-registration form. I'll show this to you. It's a form that you must complete. It must be completed prior to getting onto your plane going from the United States to, in this case, Colombia. And lastly, you now have to show proof of a negative COVID-19 test result or prove quarantine. This is a PCR test. We'll talk about that in a moment. So we're going to take a look at the check-mig or immigration Colombia page. On here is a form we fill out so that they're able to track you in Colombia during the time that you go from the United States on your airplane to Colombia. You complete this. They won't allow you on the airplane until it's completed. You can do it on your phone. I prefer to do it on a laptop myself that I carry with me. And you complete the form. It's just completely electronic. It's asking about where you're from, have you done your COVID test, what proof do you have, and it also then asks where you're going to. So now let's talk about COVID tests. Now there's a difference between a rapid test and a PCR test. You need to have a PCR test to fly internationally. And this is very important. When I first was looking at the beginning of November before my trip, I needed to have a PCR test. Fortunately, things changed. They didn't require it, but I did have it anyway. But I learned a lot. The rapid test is not the PCR test, and the PCR test isn't necessarily a rapid test. The PCR test that I was required to get, I had to have within 4 days. So it's 24, 48, 96 hours before, within that time period before my flight. If I didn't have that, I would not have been able to get on the plane. So I was very difficult trying to find a place to go. Now some of the airports have them, so that's helpful in the whole process. But you got to be sure. There is a PCR test, and I'm just going to read some of the different ones that are being offered. A standard molecular NAAT, PCR, or TMA COVID-19 test, a rapid COVID-19 antigen test. The word PCR is not there. A rapid COVID-19 molecular NAAT test. No word that says PCR. And again, rapid RT PCR COVID-19 test. They say that that one's the best for traveling. It's also the most expensive if you're doing it within an airport. So you need to have a PCR test. That's the defining thing, and you need to have it in time to be able to fly. What have been your experiences? Have you flown internationally? Have you been required to take a PCR test? I'd be interested to hear. Down in the feedback, let me hear it, and so that we can share it amongst the other people who might be interested. This isn't the most exciting topic, and I understand that, but it's extremely important, or you will be stuck somewhere. And you don't want to be stuck in an airport with no place to go, or somehow get stuck in a foreign country with no way to get back. So you might be asking yourself, what is it like in Colombia once I get there? Well, customs is pretty lax. They're very big on monitoring, not as in electronic, though they do monitor you for 14 days that you're there. There is no quarantine currently, though there are curfews at night. But when you come in for customs, it's really pretty simple. They do a lot of procedures throughout customs and within Colombia as you go to and from different businesses. They are constantly giving you something to wash your hands, either a cleanser as in like a sink and all that, or just a spray. They're constantly checking your temperature, all of the time checking your temperature. They also have mats on the ground that you rub your feet on to make sure that I guess that you're not tracking COVID on your feet. Masks are mandatory in public. One last thing is that within Colombia, they have a coronavirus app that they have you complete online on your phone. It's a phone app of keeping track of COVID if you're going to and from airports. My last trip there, I figured out I was in 9 different airplane flights over about 20 days flying around Colombia. Each time I would have to complete this app. This app tells them where you've been, how long since the last time you've flown, where you're planning to going. I think this is their contact tracing app, so that should you be in a place where coronavirus was, they can contact you and let you know of that. The other thing is that when you go into airports, they have full body scans to check you for your temperature in case you might be running a temperature and maybe have some of the influences of coronavirus. So let's talk a little bit about returning to the United States. This is where the biggest question comes. They've now announced that as of the 25th or 26th of January, that's going to be required to have a negative test for COVID before you can come back to the United States. Well, my question is, where do you get that done? I hope this video has been very informative for you. If you have any questions, please leave them down below. I love the feedback. I'd love to get comments from you and make this into a dialogue. Before you leave, please don't forget to subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Curious Perro. Thank you very much.